All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are, Huddle Up. We're with Derek Luebbe. And Derek, can you please introduce yourself for the people?
Hi, Barry. Yeah, my name is Derek Luebbe. I have been an educator for the last 25 years in roles in K-12 education, actually in American schools around the world, so American accredited schools. But I started as a teacher, spent most of my time as a principal, and ended my last 4 years. I was the director of the Shanghai Community International School in Shanghai, and left that role in June of 2020. But I've had a great run overseas with my wife, who's also a teacher, and we've had 3 lovely girls who were brought up in various countries around the world.
Very nice. That's fantastic. That must be phenomenal for those kids to have those opportunities. But so you principal, teacher, you've got amazing as an international educator background for learning. But how does that factor into Huddle Up?
Yeah, I think the international scene helped Huddle Up a lot, or at least helped me think and create regarding Huddle Up. The international schools are very well resourced, and you have a lot of autonomy within them to think, what's best for kids? How do we want to best develop their skills? And when you get your staff engaged with those kinds of conversations, and there are fewer restrictions placed upon you, thus the international schools have that added benefit. I think you come up with some, you put smart people in a room, and hopefully we start to develop really good solutions. And the idea that, for me personally kept coming up again and again were these authentic learning experiences, what educators will call problem-based learning.
Mm-hmm. And is that what drove you to create Huddle Up, these situations where solutions were coming up?
Yeah, sure. So, as a teacher and even as a principal, these were kind of forefront of my mind of like, is really the goal to take a quiz? And in what way can I make the content that I'm sharing and the skills that I'm trying to get through to students, how can I make these more authentic and more relevant for kids? Because we've all been in school environments where it's like, why am I learning this? If it's just for a quiz or a test, and we pull our hair out and especially with COVID these days, we are in tears and we're getting screamed at as parents. I can speak to being screamed at by my daughters who are like, this is insane. And so I wanted to build something in the classroom as a teacher, first and foremost, that said, why are we learning these skills of, analysis, and how can we put them into play? What do professionals do with the content that we teach in schools? How can students put that content and skills into action? And of course, that always comes back to things in the education world, which we call project-based learning, problem-based learning, authentic assessment. They're very similar terms for the same, performance assessment, many of the same things. As you said, there's a clear goal, but there's really no clear pathway.
All right. And so you create that clear pathway. How? How do you create that clear pathway?
Well, we create a process, I would say. Huddle Up, is an online learning platform, and it works slightly differently. Sure, like any platform, we have the ability to share content. We have the ability to share, videos, quizzes, and open response questions like you would just to comprehend, quote unquote, the learning. But what's really special, hopefully, is that the design of Huddle Up is structured around solving a real world challenge, basically an authentic project. Mm-hmm. And so the goal within Huddle Up is to have the learners create their own solution, to use the content and use their skills to create their own solution.
All right. Well, can you actually show us a little bit about that? Because I'd love to see exactly. I've already had a look, but I want the people out there to have an idea of what this looks like.
Sure. Okay. So I am now logged into Huddle Up with one of our users. His name is Jim, and Jim lands on a dashboard here. And Jim can create Huddle Up courses. And Jim has already joined one Huddle Up course that you see here called the Welcome course. So we're going to jump right into this Huddle Up Welcome course, which is actually our tutorial course. But probably the thing that strikes you a bit is there are some elements in here that are very similar to what other learning models and learning platforms have, and then there are some that are unique. So Here we have, a course bulletin board. You'll see that often on learning platforms. Huddle Up is kind of interesting because we gamify things. We give each user a course score based on the interactions they have with both the platform and, more importantly, with other learners. And we'll get into a little bit more detail about how that happens in just a second. But like any learning platform, you have, your syllabus over here on the left-hand side, and we could look at these projects, and we could, look at one particular piece of content that's added, and just, share the text, share a video. This is obviously how instructors share what's important to them for their class. That we call those components what we call readies, because really you're getting a learner ready to take some action. There's nothing inherent they need to do. They need to watch a video, a lecture, read a PDF, but that's pretty prevalent in every platform, and we call that a ready.
Just basically the content that they need for learning, right?
That's right. What are the best practices and what's the content they need? Mm-hmm. The next element we have is represented by this green icon who's running, and it's obviously called a run. And a run is just...
It's not obvious. It looks like he could be falling over. I don't know.
Could be. Good point. Great point.
We've got the ready. We've got the trip.
I should not assume. Great point. Well, a run in Huddle Up is anytime a learner is taking action. And again, you'll see these on other learning platforms. This is a quiz or a survey or an open response question. A learner is sharing their thinking about something in a run. And we have those in Huddle Up, of course, as well. What's really unique about Huddle Up is the third component, which is called a huddle. And a huddle is any time that all the learners are engaged in giving feedback to one another about a previous run. So a couple minutes ago, I talked about Huddle Up as a solution-focused platform where problems are meant to be solved. Learners are coming up with solutions. A huddle allows everyone to benefit from the feedback of everyone else in the classroom regarding his or her own solution. And so it's really cool to see that in action. And we'll just look at one very quickly.
Yes, so please. Finally, I really do enjoy this idea. And, as an educator, taking that next step. A lot of times, with your ready and your run, you get the content, you take the quiz, and that is how education works. But with what you're doing, taking that extra step with the huddle, I love it. I'm really interested to see what that is, because I haven't had an opportunity to see what a huddle looks like. So we're logged in here, as I said, with a user named Jim up here in the top right. And Jim is looking at what we call our Learn from Others table. And you can see right away that these components in the top represent the runs and the huddles that the teacher has already assigned and that the learners have already completed. And you can see that Jim, in some cases, he cannot see the answers or the solutions of others. Those components, those runs, are private. Mm-hmm. But you can also see that in some cases, Jim can see the solutions of others. And of course, all of that is customized by the project leader or the instructor. Mm-hmm. So in this case, we're going to let Jim look at Pam's answer. Now, this was a particular run that was focused on being a better team. So they were asked to share their ideas to improve their fictional office team. And so the question was, how can we be a more effective team? And every learner was asked this. And here's Pam's answer. And Pam even shared a video for sharing more context about her answer. So first and foremost, Jim benefits by seeing the solutions of his classmates. And that's great. That's step one. But here, Barry, is what we talk about when we talk about the huddle. Mm-hmm. And in this case, Jim is able to view the feedback that Pam received from the entire class, so that Jim also gets to learn maybe what are the strengths and weaknesses from Pam's solution. And obviously, Pam gets to learn, from a variety of feedback. So very briefly, you can see, if you can squint your eyes this much, Pam has earned 3.75 stars from her 4 peers who have evaluated her run and given her comments. And really, it's this quantifiable and qualitative nature of feedback that we think elevates the learning so much. Mhm. And something that's always been interesting to me, and something I've always taught my students. I remember whenever I would have new students as an educator, I know this works across many platforms, but as an educator, the first thing I would tell new students is don't be afraid to make mistakes. Because I know that a lot of students, they don't want to speak, or they don't want to feel judged, or they don't, you can't learn unless you have that kind of comfort, that in that space to make mistakes, or to, give opinions. And I feel like with Huddle Up, it's some people would see those stars and be like, oh, like on Amazon, you judge a product, or, on Yelp, and you judge. With this, no, this is feedback. This is an opportunity for people to say, hey, this is what I think about what you're doing. And then to take that next step, to go into the chat box, to actually communicate with your team to be more successful. And that you can't put a price on that. And it really is interesting how it can mold a culture to be more open to communication and not judgment, but feedback.
Sure.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate it. One thing that we're pretty proud of is that, and it speaks to what you're sharing there, Barry, is that it flattens the classroom, because the relationship is no longer just between one student and the teacher. It's really a community of learners, and they're learning from and with one another, because why shouldn't we be giving peer feedback? And why don't we have a platform here that can consolidate and summarize and analyze and help even synthesize some of that feedback, so that each of us is getting a much richer display of data based around the solutions we share. To piggyback on a second idea that you had, Barry, you talked about Amazon and the stars. There's definitely kind of an element of social media wrapped up in this, which is just like social media, we share our ideas. And I think there's something biologically, in our DNA that says we want to seek feedback from others on, do they find our ideas of high quality? Do they find value in what we're sharing? And that's as true on Facebook as it is on Instagram or Huddle Up.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And it's so true. It's so true. I mean, no amount of advertising from companies is ever going to have the same weight as seeing my peers, make a call on what is being said, or for example, on Amazon, what the product is. It's like Amazon can give me all this information, but when I see what my peers think and feel based on their experience, it carries a lot more weight. And I think that it also improves the learning process. So that's awesome. This is fantastic. So,
yeah, thanks.
All right. So now, did you have anything to add?
You were speaking there of some big terms in terms of skills we need for this next century in terms of feedback, and where do we get a chance to even practice skills like this with learners unless we have interactive learning platforms like Huddle Up? Where can they practice giving good feedback and being a good team member? Where can they practice creativity and get evaluated on their solution? Where can they practice collaboration and communication? And these are all the skills we want for employees and to be productive citizens. But to be fair, we think Huddle Up is filling a niche, filling a gap, because really the other platforms out there are largely focused on, can you remember this answer? So I think that's an opportunity for us as well.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think about it, or don't talk about it, at least, that we still exist. We have such an antiquated system when it comes to education. It's very A to Z, A being, I don't know anything, Z being, here's your certification or your degree. And then they send you off into the world. And the expectation is that you'll know what to do based on what you did in college or high school or something. But what Huddle Up does is it says, no, that we understand that that's a part of the process, but that's 2/3 of the process. The biggest part is taking it that next level, applying, communicating, the social aspect. And so what really excites me about this is the idea that people, if this becomes a new standard, especially in companies and schools, people are going to start learning. They're not just going to be studying, regurgitating information. They're actually going to be taking that extra step, learning what was necessary to learn. And that's what it really fascinates me about Huddle Up.
Yeah, thanks. We're very mission driven. And our mission is to transform online learning to be more purposeful and interactive. And we're going to transform it for individuals and organizations. So I'm kind of glad you brought up the corporate, connection there, because we are getting some interest actually from the corporate side. And I'd say right now it's fair to say we are very much in exploratory mode on validating where our best kind of use cases for Huddle Up is going to be. Obviously, I come from an educational background, and I believe there's tremendous value in it for educational organizations. But I think there's also, we're seeing some definite interest on the corporate side in terms of they too are kind of locked into this, watch a video kind of passive learning model. And there are certainly opportunities here for Huddle Up to solve some problems on the corporate side as well.
All right. So let's move. Let's continue that actually, because we've talked about education. Obviously, I'm an educator. That's where, and you are obviously an educator. That's where you came from. But something that's really important now you're talking about is corporate. Where is the startup at the moment? That I think that's a good segue. You have so many applications across so many different sectors. Where are you at now?
Yeah, we're trying to validate some use cases. We have a couple pilots, one of which has just started with a university. We have 2 others ready to go, kind of inked and just waiting to begin. And all 3 of those are in the education space. But we do have some budding prospects, I guess, and we're really trying to validate some of those use cases with different companies. For instance, to use Huddle Up as even a kind of a corporate problem-solving platform where you could engage all of your team or all of your employees around some central question. And the narrative that you shared there in regards to giving a voice to all students is very true in the corporate world too. Is how can we give our team members from sales and marketing and R&D, how can we help them engage in solving some problems that are key for the company, and at the same time open their eyes to the different solutions that other people in the company also have. So it can become a very kind of interactive community building platform for companies to use in that regards as well. We are the other really more obvious use case is in training, where there are a lot of onboarding programs, for bringing on new employees or for training people in terms of changes in policies and procedures around any skill set or trying to bring a company's culture together. And when you engage people in actually problem solving or in applying those principles in real life situations, you make the learning so much richer than just, kind of watching the video and say, okay, yes, now I've got the stamp of my corporate culture that I've gone through this introduction process. So but I think 40, there's some applications there. Yeah,
the 40 fresh out of college kids, you pop them in a room in front of a television and say, here's your training. Right. Now get out there. Good luck.
Right.
Yeah, I really do like that your process is just, it's more natural.
Yeah,
I think that's the best way to put it. All right, so you've got it all happening, is what I'm hearing, and that's more of the now. What about what's on the horizon? What about moving forward? What do you?
Well, certainly we're looking for. At the moment we're very young. As I said, we launched in March, and we're certainly looking at funding opportunities here. We're looking at partnership opportunities because we don't see ourselves competing so much against other learning platforms as we do with integrating with them. It's a unique addition, if you will, to the platforms that are out there. And so many of these platforms do some things fantastically well, and they probably are looking for a solution that just wants to take their learners or give them the option to take that next step and apply their learning and be more interactive. And so there are some definite, potential partnership possibilities there. In terms of the site, the one thing that I'm actually most excited about is starting to develop some quantitative measures around those 21st century skills that we talk about, like feedback and creativity and collaboration. You can quantify those types of things here in Huddle Up in a way that is not possible on other platforms. You can imagine, we already looked at some rudimentary ways in terms of, let's say, feedback. And, Barry, you could give me a comment on my work and you would earn some points by giving me feedback. Frankly, that's pretty superficial. It's important, but it's still pretty superficial. Your comment could be, "Good job, Derek," and the system has just given you points for that.
Yes,
but we're points. Congratulations, by the way,
successful.
But what we're really hoping to leverage is we all been part of teams where there are people who maybe don't have the best solution, but they are the best team member, or they are the ones that raise the water level for everyone by giving the feedback that makes everyone else better. And that's a very easy thing to quantify within a system like Huddle Up, because we're going to be able to compare how different people give feedback. And once again, we can leverage social learning to say, hey, Barry, or actually in my scenario, it would be me. Hey, Derek, this week, who gave you some of this best feedback? And now we're starting to get into this quantitative quality of feedback, not just who gave the most feedback. So I think there's some real potential there for saying, your strength as a learner is in creativity and coming up with solutions. Everyone seemed to love your ideas, but you still need to work on elevating others and on supporting others, because that's going to be apparent too in a system like this, or at least there's the potential to have this apparent. And we're pretty excited to get that rolling out here, probably in the subsequent months.
Yeah. And, it's just, I think the one thing that fascinates me the most about this is just how obvious it seems. It blows my mind that people haven't been doing this for some people have, and they're very successful, but applying that knowledge, taking that next step, I'm really, really excited to see where this goes. Okay. So tell us, Derek, please, where can we find you other than Huddle Up Learning, not huddleup.com, but huddleuplearning.com. Where can we find you?
You can check out my blog. We're all over social media in terms of Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. Follow Huddle Up in whatever platform of your choice that you like. And for sure, check out our blog, and you can stay up to date with things that we're adding and be part of the transformation here. We'd love to partner with individuals and companies that see value in this kind of interactive learning. And we're looking for those use cases all the time. So please reach out, follow us, and stay in touch.
All right, Derek, thank you so much. It was always a pleasure talking with you, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks, Barry. I appreciate the opportunity as well. Thanks.
See ya.
See you so much.